A U.S. Air Force plane this morning is on a mysterious space mission. An unmanned Atlas V rocket lifted off from Cape Canaveral Wednesday, putting the mostly classified plane into orbit. The rocket was built by United Launch Alliance, a partnership of Lockheed Martin and Boeing. Derrick Pitts is the chief astronomer and planetarium director for the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. Good morning.
Good morning.
So what's the goal here?
Well, the goal of the X-37B is for the U.S. Air Force to have the ultimate platform of observation over the planet, really. It gives them a perfect location for surveillance of any sort of hostile nations or anything like that. And they do have some civilian payloads on board, but it really is a Air Force test bed for their capabilities to maneuver in Earth orbit.
Can other people do this, or are we way ahead of everybody?
No, we're way ahead of everybody on this, and that's one of the things about this that makes it so wonderful for the Air Force, is that we're ahead of everybody else on this, and it, again, gives them the advantage over everybody else.
You touched on it, but can you tell us what they're looking for?
Well, if you think about what the Air Force needs most, they need information, and from this platform, they can see how any hostile nation or any adversarial nation is building up any sort of military capability. They can look down at an airfield, see how many planes are there, see if the airplanes have been used recently, see if they're filled with fuel.
Perfect example, the Chinese building these islands now.
Yeah, that would be a perfect example of that, and from that vantage point, they have that perfect view everywhere.
But we already have that. We already have satellites, which I think is what's leading a lot of people to say this is maybe about weaponization in space, which if a lot of the top defense experts have been talking about this for decades, that the next frontier in war is in space.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and we've known that for some time. If you go back and look at the beginning of the space program, the militarization aspect was always there, along with the hero aspect of it.
So do you think it's a space weapon?
I think what they can use this for, from the low Earth orbit aspect, is it gives them, and especially with the capability of this craft to maneuver around, it allows them to move around in that orbit and potentially be able to do something about adversarial satellites, even because they are developing the capability to move around in space as well.
What does do something mean?
Well, if you wanted to take out, for example, the satellite of an adversarial country that's providing information that they might use to their advantage, well, this gives us that advantage over
that. That is so interesting. So just to think about like war games, imagine a rival country is using their satellites to direct their submarines, their planes, all those things. Yeah. By taking out their satellite, you could then completely wipe out their capabilities.
Right, that's exactly right. And so when you do that, you're getting rid of their eyes and their ears from this really wonderful platform of look down, this capability to see everything that's going on the planet, of course, depending on the orbits, but it's the maneuverability capability that really enhances what this can do. How much of this is classified?
Almost
all of it. In fact, the Air Force would not admit that this craft even existed during its first launch, but amateur observers identified it in its orbit and could tell what it was and reported back to the Air Force that they had identified it already.
Well, you seem very excited about it, and you can get everybody else excited in your snazzy red shoes.
All things space, that would be me.
Well, let me see those shoes. What are you wearing there?
Yeah, they're very, very snazzy.
Look at them.
There you go.
All right, thank you very much.